The police convoy disappeared beyond the estate. Silence returned to Kang Holdings. The head of security looked towards Chairman Kang.
Chairman, what do we do about Mr. Han?
Junho remained seated. He looked at Minso.
That's everything Mr. Han has done over the last 7 days.
Minso nodded. Less than an hour later, Minso returned carrying a tablet.
We've completed the review.
Junho looked up.
What did you find?
Minso opened the report.
Yesterday, Mr. Han met Dahyun.
Junho's expression did not change. Minso continued.
The remaining loan on his refrigerated truck was settled the same day. Bank records show a full cash payment. No registered company, no financing trail. Hush.
Junho quietly nodded.
Chose the desperation one. That's what he always does.
Minso continued.
The truck ownership transferred immediately. He completed procurement registration, but biometric enrollment was never completed. The police forensic report also confirms no fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence Mr. Han ever handled the concealed package. The milk belonged to the dairy, the narcotics not.
The room became quiet. Junho slowly stood.
He wasn't buying a truck. He was being bought. He wasn't the target. I was.
He turned back towards Minso.
Contact the investigation officer. Don't ask for favors. Don't interfere with the investigation. Simply give them every fact we've uncovered. If the evidence clears him, he walks. If he doesn't, the law decides.
Minso nodded.
Understood, Chairman.
Junho remained silent for several moments, then quietly said,
That is the second innocent person someone has used to get to me.
Outside the office, I had stopped walking. I didn't mean to listen, but those words held me there. Second innocent person. Mr. Han was one, so who was the first? I stepped back quietly. Some questions needed right study. Chairman Kang was not a man you rushed. Later that evening, the investigation officer reviewed the final forensic report. No fingerprints, no DNA, no narcotics residue, no evidence Mr. Han had ever handled the concealed package. The hidden compartment had been modified before the milk was even loaded. The investigator slowly closed the file. He looked across the table. Mr. Han sat exhausted. His eyes carried the weight of 2 sleepless nights. The investigator finally spoke.
Mr. Han, our investigation shows you were transporting milk, not narcotics. You were just used. Then you were free to go.
For a moment, freedom felt harder to believe than prison. Outside the station, 2 black vehicles waited. Men dressed in black stood quietly beside them. Mr. Han lowered his head.
So, Dahyun sent him?
The senior bodyguard shook his head.
No. Chairman Fan.
Mr. Han looked confused.
I don't understand.
The bodyguard opened the rear door. You will. The convoy quietly drove back towards Kang Holdings.
Come in.
I have been thinking about Mr. Han. Compromise. Systems remove opportunity rather than people.
So, what would you do?
I would not remove him, but remove vulnerable me could ever be used again. Debt company no contracts will old connectable. If he starts again, let him truly start again.
Minso, come in.
Chairman, the police have released Mr. Han.
And?
He's waiting outside.
Without turning around, Juno started giving instruction.
Mr. Han remains our approved supplier. Complete his biometric registration. Prepare new supplier contracts. Register a new trading name. Replace every company logo. Rebrand every delivery vehicle. Replace every supplier record. Every license, every content.
Minso continued making notes. Junho remained looking out of the window.
When Dahyun looks for the company he purchased, I want him to discover that it no longer exists.
Minso nodded.
It will be done, Chairman.
I looked toward Juno. You've just given him another beginning. He gently shook his head.
No, I have removed the reason he could ever be bought again.
Later that evening, the mansion had grown quiet. The twins were asleep. I found Junho alone in his study. The investigation files had been replaced by silence. I knocked softly. Mr. Kang, he looked up. Come in. I walked inside. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, I broke the silence. I've been thinking about you said earlier. He waited. You called Mr. Han the second innocent person. He slowly closed the file in front of him. I hesitated. If he was the second, who was the first? For several long seconds, Juno said nothing. He simply looked through the window in the darkness, finally spoke.
The twins' mother.
Silence filled the room. I looked at him. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the memory. After a long pause, he quietly said,
She was never part of my war. They brought Wu to her.
I lowered my eyes. I'm sorry. He slowly shook his head.
No. It taught me something.
He looked towards the hallway where the twins slept.
The quickest way to destroy a man isn't to attack him. It's to attack someone who never chose the fight.
Silence returned. I looked back at him. Will you tell me what happened? He looked at me, not as Chairman Kang, as Junho. Then the smallest smile appeared.
One day, I will.
Later, I stood outside the twins' room, watching them sleep peacefully. Two children completely unaware of the battles fought before they were born. I finally understood why Junho hated innocent people being used as weapons. It was in business. It was in strategy. It was history. Sometimes, the strongest principles are born from the deepest scars. Some scars create enemies. Others create principles.